welcome to the VS Code live stream and Happy New Year. This is our first live stream back after the holidays. Our last one was mid-December, and that was a fun one where Burke and I came on in our ugly Christmas sweaters and rated your setup. So definitely check that out if that sounds interesting. We're really happy to be back, kicking things off with the new year with an exciting live stream with Tyler from the VS Code team to talk about building your first extension. So really excited to have you all here. Let's see what we got in the comments. I'm joining you. It's almost a party. Wolfgang, you're right. It is a party. It's always a party on these live streams. Code Stacker, yo, what's up? How's it going? Benjamin, Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a safe and happy holiday season and everyone is ready to kick off the new year learning new code. I think on our Twitter channel, we actually posted a tweet asking people what your New Year's resolutions were, meaning in the code sense. So if you're looking to learn a new tech stack, any projects you're hoping to contribute to, let us know in the comments if you have any of those. I'd love to hear them. Today is going to be a fun day. Before we kick off on today's regularly scheduled live stream, I actually want to do a quick plug for another live stream that we will be having on our VS Code channels. And that's going to be something called the Python Pulse. So that's actually having its first inaugural show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. It is being hosted by Don Wages, who is an absolutely amazing PM at Microsoft, and Pamela Fox is going to be coming on to chat about Postgres in code spaces. So it's going to be really cool. If you are a Python folk, then let us know and definitely check that out tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Tyrone, Happy New Year. Alexi, hopefully I am pronouncing that right. Hello from Malta. Happy New Year. So excited to have you all here. This is going to be fun. All right, so let's go ahead and kick things off, though, with our TikTok Throwback Thursday and see what we got there.
It's time for what we like to call the lightning round, during which you have to answer a bunch of questions you don't want to have to answer. So first question, is it GIF or GIF?
GIF. Definitely GIF.
Question 2, Jason or JSON?
Jason.
That is also
not
correct.
JSON. Yeah, it's Jason.
JSON. Let's see, tabs or spaces? Tabs versus spaces. It's a simple question, David.
It's spaces. It's always spaces. It's been spaces.
Have you ever seen the Stack Overflow survey where they determine that developers who use spaces make more money than developers who use tabs? So if you want to make more money, just switch from tabs to spaces. It's literally that easy.
I love that. I'm glad that we had that one because that's actually going to give you a little bit of a preview of the lightning round we'll do today with Tyler. So we'll get to hear his answers for those questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what the intro video is for today's live stream. The world of software engineering is vast. There are hundreds of different programming languages, plenty of different coding styles, and everyone has their process for getting their work done. VS Code can't cover everything on its own, which is why it has a rich API for building VS Code extensions that can be published to the VS Code marketplace for the world to use. VS Code wouldn't be VS Code without all the incredible extension authors all over the world that help us perfect our development setup. Have you ever wondered how those authors got started in making their extensions? We invite Tyler on the VS Code team to walk us through what it's like to build a VS Code extension from scratch. Cool. All right. I hope that's getting y'all excited because I'm excited. And with that, we can go ahead and bring Tyler on to start chatting with us about building your first VS Code extension. Hey,
hello. Hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you are coming through loud and clear.
Great.
How you doing?
Good, good. I love these intro videos. It makes it so official, so like, yeah.
I know, so fancy. I feel like they really get you hyped. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm about to see something really cool. I love that we started adding this to the live streams.
Yeah.
Let's see what we have in the chat real quick. We got, oh, hello, Precious. Happy to see you. And then the real answer to tabs or spaces is both. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Jason, but we will see what Tyler has to say at the end of this segment and see if he agrees. Cool. All right, Tyler, what do you have to show us today?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about building VS Code extensions. So starting kind of from scratch, and going from nothing at all to building a couple of, albeit very ridiculous extensions, but extensions nonetheless. But really, this is all about the process of how do you get from absolutely no idea how to get started with a VS Code extension to what's the process of publishing that to the VS Code marketplace for others to use. So that's
Awesome. I'm excited. Chat, let us know if you regularly build these extensions or if this will be your first time kind of going through the process. And definitely let us know your questions throughout so Tyler can help with those.
cool.
All
All
right.
right. So we're going to get started here. So I asked if we could add a message in our initial live stream tweets and things like that to say to go ahead and get VS Code and Node already, if you want to follow along with this live stream. And a lot of this stuff that I'm going to be showing today is like I didn't prepare a whole lot. Not because I'm lazy. Okay, maybe a little bit because I'm lazy, but also because I want this to feel very very raw and like approachable, that I'm also going to be just like looking at the documentation and not going like on a script or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's great. We already have a couple comments saying first time for me, first look. So
Sweet. Yeah. So that's going to be our main focus of this live stream today. So I went ahead and ran the first thing that we do when we want to get started making VS Code extensions, and that's running this command here, which will globally install a couple of node modules that we're going to use in order to get started here. So those two are yo and generator code here. Now, for those of you who haven't been in like web development for a very long time, yo is something that that's been around for quite a while. I think it's maybe lost its popularity from when it once was, but it's a really cool tool for scaffolding out new projects that you want to get started with. And then you can, so yo is kind of like the framework for scaffolding, and then packages with the generator dash whatever next to it are individual templates for the individual scaffolds. So in our case, we want the code scaffold, which is our VS Code scaffolding plugin, say for yo, which is called Yeoman, by the way. It's like the British, those British guard guys. That's what a yeoman is. Anyway,
all this is in the documentation you mentioned, right?
Yes, yeah. So if you do lose track of what we're doing here, it's very easy to find. You can go to our website, go to API, get started, and right there, it's like your first extension. It's the top line that you're going to want to run. Which leads us to the next command that we're going to run, which is probably one of my favorite commands to run in a terminal, is yo code. So if we run this, this is kind of, it's interesting because the generator code package is actually a collection of different scaffolds, and you can see those all enumerated here. So we're going to look at a couple of these today. We're going to get to the first one, which is new extension. But I also want to cover one other one here, which is new code snippets. So on the marketplace, there are plenty of extensions, but there are extensions of all different kinds of varieties. So you have the majority of extensions, which I think are actual like extensions with code, which is going to be an like new extension that uses TypeScript or JavaScript. But then there are actually some other extensions that don't actually require any code, that I think can be a little bit more approachable if you really want to start out at like the the easiest type of extension that you want to publish on the marketplace. And so those are, in my opinion, new color themes. So if you ever want to make your own theme for VS Code and then publish that to the marketplace for others to use, you could do this template. I'm not much
actually have
on it.
someone who said, I built a theme, but not an actual extension. A theme is still an extension.
Exactly.
As a great entry point. Yeah.
Right. A theme is still an extension. It might not have any code behind it, but still, it's an extension nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I wanted to cover today is new code snippets. And so this is, VS Code has the concept of snippets today, and you could go ahead and make your own snippets and use them locally just for yourself. Or if you have a collection of snippets that you're like, you know what, I think these are generally useful for people who work in whatever framework or whatever. Let me go ahead and publish these snippets to the marketplace for folks to play around with. And then you can see there's a couple of other ones in the list, but we're going to go with new code snippet and see what it does. So now we just follow the flow here. It's been a while since I've done this for code snippets, so I'm going to have to read along. All right, so folder name for import or none for new. So I think we're going to go new. Name of your extension, we're going to call it, I actually have some React Native snippets, so we're going to call it Tyler's React Native.
When you're making these names and with the eventual goal of publishing this to the marketplace, do you need to make sure you're picking something here that's unique and not already published, or does it not really matter at this point?
For the extension name, it doesn't really matter. Actually, sorry, I just realized this was the name of the extension, not the ID. So this is like Tyler's snippets. It doesn't have to be unique, but you when you want to publish something to the marketplace, you'll have a specific publisher, and that publisher needs to be unique on the marketplace.
So you don't need to worry about that at this point.
Right. Yeah. So, and then the publisher plus the extension ID, that will be kind of the ID for that extension.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess to answer your question, you can't publish two extensions under the same publisher with the same name.
Okay.
But
then once it's defined, it will be unique. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For React Native. Cool. So we'll do that. And it's nice. So this is the identifier. You'll see what that looks like in a bit. Description, snippets. Let's get to the good stuff already. Okay, language. So we're gonna say let's see, TSX, I guess. It should work. And initialize a Git repository. Cool. So you can see it's like created a bunch of stuff. And now we can go ahead and open it. It sees that I'm running within VS Code Insiders already. So let's hit enter, and it will go ahead and open my new extension with everything. And we can open this extension quick start guide. And if you want to read through this, you totally can. It's basically just saying, here's how to get started with what you just created. But the gist of this is we want to take a look at what's in the package.json here. Package.json is what we call the extension manifest. And this basically says, this defines all the things that your extension can do.
Can you zoom to like a couple levels, maybe just in case it's a little small for people watching?
Oh, yeah, sure, of course.
Their devices. Cool. That should be good, I think. But chat, let me know if that's still too small and we can update.
Yeah. So all of the things that that a VS Code extension could do typically contributes it under the contributes section here. And in this case, we're contributing snippets. The language that we're contributing to is TSX, which, by the way, if you want to know what this could be, I believe, okay, maybe it doesn't have completions for here, but if you go to select the language mode here, and I look for TSX. So I actually got it wrong. I put TSX there, but I guess it's supposed to be TypeScript React. So it's a good thing I checked that ahead of time.
Okay, so it doesn't really check it when you're doing that initial prompt on the command line. Okay.
Yeah, it probably well, it can't, because there might be a language out there.
Right, true. That it just
TSX.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll do TypeScript React in that case, and then we have our snippets here, and this file over here, snippets, it's empty, and it looks. This is basically identical to your user snippets. So I could say like snippets here, configure user snippets, and then you see I have this snippet here, and this is kind of like what a snippet looks like if you haven't seen one before. But it's basically like you have an ID, I guess, of the snippet, and then the scope is what language you care about. Don't worry about this one. And then the body of the actual snippet, what will actually get placed in your source code. And then there's some other stuff. There's some other configuration stuff that you could play around with if you want to. Like the prefix is what actually gets typed. So if I wanted to say just like this, and then I type that in the editor, that will give me a little completion that says, like, actually, let me just show you what that looks like right now.
Yeah, because I'm wondering how many people here know about snippets, because snippets are so handy, but I feel like they're one of the lesser known features that some people have.
So I have this, I just like am configuring my user snippets, right? And so now I have an untitled CSS file. I just changed the language to CSS. And so then I said the prefix is ZXCV, classic name.
We'll never forget that.
If I type that in my editor, you can see that my my snippet shows up in the completions, and it actually even shows the snippet itself right there. So then I hit enter, and suddenly my snippet is in my editor. So like, you know, we use a bunch of snippets on the VS Code team for various things. A lot of people like to put, you know, some people have like copyright headers if they work in an organization that like needs to have a copyright at every file. So we'll throw the copyright in a snippet, and then it's really easy to like add those in.
Right.
Things like that. So that's what a snippet is. And this extension allows you to publish a bunch of snippets to the marketplace for other people to consume. So with that said, let's close out of this one, open up our other snippet file. This is our snippets file here. Right, so let's go ahead and add some snippets. So like I said, we wanted to do some snippets for React Native. To be honest with you, I don't know much about React Native. However, I thought it would be funny if I asked ChatGPT for some samples of React Native just to see what would happen.
I love this.
And so I like asked for that in the form of the VS Code VS Code snippets, and it totally ignored that. So rude. But it did give me 5 snippets, which is great. But you know, we're having a chat, me and ChatGPT. So then I asked, no, can you please turn these examples into VS Code snippets? And then it just did that, which was awesome. Yeah. And funny enough, it actually forgot the 5th one. It stopped at 4, and so then I said, you forgot the last one, and then it was like, oh yeah, sorry about that. Here's the 5th one. So that's
creepy how good it is.
Yeah, that I thought that was pretty funny. So let's go ahead and like just grab a couple of these.
Someone said, I've never seen someone sound so confident yet be so wrong sometimes as ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We got a lot of love for ChatGPT here. ChatGPT for the win. Yeah, this is a great integration. Yeah, cool. I'm all for this.
Yeah, it's fun. Now, I wanted to like have a big disclaimer here of like, you know, make sure that these snippets are actually useful. Don't go like publishing random extensions to the marketplace with snippets that are totally from ChatGPT and you have no idea what they're for.
A good disclaimer.
But this is just for the sake of the live stream, not for the sake of
it's for fun. Yeah,
publishing the actual marketplace.
We're gonna see a giant influx of just random words, snippets.
Right. So you could see that like they all have prefixes, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to cover this. Maybe some other live stream, there could be like a big deep dive on snippets, because there's a lot of power that you can do just with snippets. Like there's a way to like add, you can like add things within the body so that the cursor jumps to a specific position. And like a whole bunch of stuff to make snippets like super powerful than just like pasting in some code.
Right. Yeah, snippets are so cool. I feel like the first time I ever tried them, you're like, oh, this is just so we'll insert text. And then all of a sudden you start realizing everything else you can do. You're like, oh my goodness, this is a lifesaver.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, totally. And that's why like the top snippet extensions on the marketplace are the ones that like really, really like, you like almost don't realize that they're snippets. You think that they're like powered by some like crazy language server or something like that. But anyway, so as this quick start says, it talks about what's inside. And then it says, get up and running straight away. Press F5 to open a new window with your extension already loaded. So I'm going to do that. Actually, I still have a MacBook with a touch bar, so I'm going to hit the play button on my touch bar. Useless feature, but but anyway, so we're going to do that. And so at this point, if everything's working correctly, we should be able to change the language mode to TypeScript React and then see our snippets. Now, I totally forgot what the name of the snippets are, so just forgive me for a second. I'm going to move over here, go look at the snippets again. So we should see simple button and text input. Okay, cool. Let's do text input. Okay, so there it is at the bottom there. I actually have I have a setting in VS Code to put all of the snippets at the bottom of the list, just because I prefer that. But I think by default, they'll get kind of mixed in with the other results. Anyway, but there it is. So I can hit enter, and then my snippet is thrown right in there, and we're good to go. So good work, ChatGPT. You did the right thing.
Someone has a quick question about just why you would want to create a snippet extension when you can add your own user snippets.
Why create a snippet extension in VS Code by default allows you to add your own user snippets without any extension? Well, so that's the point of doing something like this, is so that you can share your snippets with the rest of the world, right? So if you feel like you have some snippets that are generally useful for somebody who does React Native work, then you could share those with somebody, with the world, by putting them in an extension and then publishing that to the marketplace. And then, then you don't have to like go and advertise for your snippets extension. It'll just be in the marketplace, and people can discover it that way. So that's why you would use this. If you really just have some snippets that are specific to you, then keep them in user snippets. No need to create an extension for all of this. But this is specifically if you want to share those extensions with other people.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. That's the same for pretty much all extensions, right? You do them so other people can benefit from what you found useful within your editor.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. So we did it. We made an extension. At this point, I am not going to completely publish this extension to the marketplace, but I'm going to just show you briefly how to do that. I don't think this guide actually tells you how to do this, but on our docs, I'm fairly certain that this is documented somewhere. Perhaps. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Oh, testing and publishing. Okay, yeah. This is a good section. It has some cool stuff on testing extensions, both like in desktop VS Code and also VS Code Dev and in the web. But then there's publishing steps, which uses the VSCE, which is a CLI tool for managing VS Code extensions, which I'll go ahead and show off now. We'll get to almost all of the way to the publishing.
Cool.
So VSCE, which you can grab by doing this, I believe.
And I noticed you're in VS Code Insiders. Is that necessary when you're testing out these extensions?
It's not necessary, but I don't know. It's nice to be on the kind of the latest, because then you can kind of foresee the future of what you're going to have to deal with, right? Because like sure, insiders might have some like new API you want to try out, or just there shouldn't be any breaking changes between versions, so it like probably doesn't matter too much. But I think insiders is fairly stable in my opinion. So it's kind of like a no-brainer for me.
Right.
But I'm a bit biased, I will say. Yeah, I should paint my shirt green so that it has
yeah, we should have a green one. That would be good.
Yeah. Right. So VSCE, I think it's VS Code Extensions. Is probably what that stands for. If we look at the help, there's like a whole bunch of stuff in here, but the important stuff is we could package, which we can run through that one, and then we can also publish, which will publish it to the marketplace. So package is interesting. All you do is you just run package in here, and it's actually going to complain to me because it says, hey, you haven't changed the README at all, because this is like a bunch of boilerplate that was a part of the initial creation, and it wants you to not just like it wants you to not just make a new extension and then immediately publish that dummy extension to the marketplace, right? So just have to make a quick change here, and by a quick change I mean we're just gonna say hi. Cool.
Love it.
And then it'll probably also yell, so it'll say, are you sure you don't have a repository field in the package.json? This is just saying like, hey, is your code published somewhere, like so that people can see it? Because a lot of our extensions on the marketplace are open source. So in this case, we're not going to bother. And also no license. And then eventually we get our packaged physics, which is this guy. And so this is our extension all packaged up and ready to go. We could take this and go over to the marketplace, click on publish extensions, which brings me into the like management stuff. I could go over to my actual ownership. Then I could hit new extension, VS Code extension, and I could drop that v6 here if I wanted to publish it.
Cool.
But that's kind of a pain.
Right.
So obviously we could just do that here.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I don't, let's see, does it have, it has a bunch of like docs on that. I'm actually not going to run it just because I don't want, well, you know what, let's see. Worst case, I just delete it.
Okay, cool.
Might as well. Yeah, I know there's no license. Okay, missing publisher name. Okay, so it needs a publisher, which we want to add. It's pretty explicit, I think. It says like missing publisher name, learn more here. But basically, it's just asking me to put a publisher here, which Copilot is almost right. Okay.
Love Copilot.
The small screen size is messing with me. Okay, I think that's my publisher name. Yeah, cool. All right, so now it should publish. Whoops.
Is there any sort of like authentication, like if you had accidentally written like the wrong publisher name in there?
Yeah, so this is exactly the step.
Oh, okay.
Probably why I won't actually be publishing this today, because I don't want to bother. But when you go through this flow, it's going to ask you for a PAT, a personal access token.
Oh, okay.
And there's some more info here on how to get one of those. And you're basically going to go into like Azure DevOps, grab a personal access token here, and then follow these steps for getting a PAT. And then you go here to VSCE login. You put the publisher name that you want to log into, and then Yeah, and then put that pat in, and then you'll be able to actually publish for that publisher.
So I couldn't just be like, oh yeah, I'm Tyler, I'm going to publish this.
Right. Yeah. You do have to actually be associated. Like, you could see I'm associated with these 3 publishers. So you do have to be associated with that publisher.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, that would be funny. Everybody publishing under Microsoft.
Yeah.
Pretty scary. Anyway, okay, so we've covered, like, basically from start to finish the kind of life cycle for creating the most simplest extension to publishing that to the marketplace. So I think at this point we can kind of shift gears a bit and maybe dive into a different kind of extension, which is probably the biggest use case, extension with actual code in it. And we can kind of go from there.
Cool. There's one question here, and I'm not sure if you want to dive into it, because it's a little bit more, past the very intro part, but basically, how do you manage a language check? So you would check for IMG when using Next and ask to replace with image. So I guess what kind of extension that would be, how you would manage kind of actually dynamically figuring out what language it is and how to do what.
So if I'm understanding the scenario right here, so based on tech, like, check for IMG when using Next and ask to replace it with image. So you basically want to replace. So like VS Code has kind of a find and replace mechanism already, which is powered by language servers. So let me bring up the TypeScript React one here, and let's see if this works. I'm not a TypeScript React person, I'm sorry, but okay, I can't rename this, probably because it's not a good snippet of code. But we just so happen to have a snippet of React Native readily available thanks to ChatGPT. Let's just see. We don't want to get too distracted here, but let's see what this does. So we wanted to replace something like this. Does this work? No, you can't rename it. Does this work? Okay, so I guess in this case, I mean, you can obviously do something like this, right? Where you go like this and replace it that way. But I guess since this is like an actual tag that's resolved, you can rename this to like foo, and then that will work. I don't know if it will actually replace all of the other instances, though. It might not. Oh yeah, it does, I guess.
Is there a way to like create an extension that kind of plugs into this find and replace that you could then do something like that? Sorry, this might be too in-depth, so we can also table this.
But the answer is probably, yeah, there's probably like API for doing this kind of thing. Well, when we like go through the API a little bit later, we can keep this in the back of our minds and
cool.
Look for something like that.
Okay. Thanks, Lucas, for the question, because we like hearing these use cases and what you all want to do. Okay.
Right. So with that said, any other questions that you think we should address now?
It looks like mostly just people pumped about this. Someone said they were all ready to download your extension, but when you're going to publish it, they'll settle with your MS to do extension. People want the feature. Oh, here's actually one question about snippets in general. Does VS Code sanitize them for malicious code?
I don't know. I mean, really, like, snippets are not getting run at all. They are just text, right? So it's hard to say, like I'm not aware of any like scanning we do on snippets because it's just text. Obviously, we scan extensions for like viruses or things like that, but nothing. I'm not sure is the answer to the question.
Okay.
I'm not the best person to answer that. Probably like Isidore would be the best person to answer that, who has more familiarity with like what actually goes on with the marketplace. But like at first glance, I would guess that the answer is no, purely because snippets are not executed at all. They are just text.
Right. That definitely makes sense. Good question, though. Feel free to DM us on Twitter, too, and ask that question, and we can reroute that to someone else, too. Cool. All right. Yeah. So there's a couple of other like more in-depth ones that maybe we can touch on later, but I'll let you kind of go to what you want to show next.
All right. So we're back at Yo Code.
Where it all starts, Yo Code.
So this time we're going to do a new extension here with TypeScript. And just thinking, yeah, let's do that one. What's the name of your extension? Cats everywhere. I'll explain. I can't think of a good description. Git repository.
The description is the name. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the name says it all, right? So this is a very interesting question. Bundle the source code with Webpack. By default, we say no here just because it's not required to publishing an extension. And without Webpack is certainly simpler from a build perspective. With that said, if you ever had plans to publish your extension to the marketplace and make a like production ready extension, I highly encourage bundling. Maybe not with Webpack, like sure with Webpack, or maybe with something else like ESBuild or something like that. Either way, bundling is super important just because it makes your extension smaller, and it also is a lot easier for you to get started with making your extension work on the web as well, where bundling is basically required. Working on the web, meaning working in like VS Code Dev or GitHub Dev, things like that, right? So I'm going to say yes, just because we won't even look at the Webpack config. It's going to basically look like we aren't even going to interact with it at all. It's like, it doesn't really matter. My personal preference is always say yes to that because you don't usually find yourself digging through Webpack configs. And then I'm going to choose NPM because why not?
Nice.
VS Code itself uses Yarn to build VS Code, but you know, NPM's easy. I already have NPM. So anyway. So now that we've opened this one, all right. So now you notice we have a source folder instead of a snippets folder. And inside of that, we've got extension.ts, and we also have a test folder. Nice. So so let's just run through these really quickly. Extension.ts, that's going to be where the entry point of your extension is. It has an activate function and a deactivate function. Typically, you're not going to really touch the deactivate that much. We're mostly going to be in the activate function. Basically, this is what's going to run when your extension is ready to be used. So you want to make sure that you implement this to do whatever you want to do. So at first glance, we could see it's got a lot of comments. So definitely worth reading through all of this later. But here's the one I wanted to call out, which is register command. And basically this is saying, I want to register a command within VS Code. And then when that command gets run, I want to run this function here. And that function just says show an information message. So what is a command? Well, it's a command in the command palette. Commands are actually much more integral to VS Code, but this is a perfect place of like where that's kind of called out, is the command palette. It's where you run commands. So this command will show up in the command palette, but we have to make sure of one thing, and that is that command is declared in our package.json, which, because we used Yo code, it's there. So we look at contributes, we see commands, and we see that the command is there. And this is where the title of that command will be.
Okay, cool.
Does that make sense? So then we've got the command here.
The title, what you would actually type in to
the command palette.
To get it. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, once again, we've got the extension quick start, which kind of goes over everything. But let's go ahead and do what it says, get up and running, by once again pressing F5.
Nice. And while that's building, we have one question I can't believe no one asked this yet. What theme are you using, Tyler?
I'm using this is the Panda theme. Panda syntax. No, Panda theme. Yeah. This one.
I love the Panda theme.
I saw it as a really cute panda on it. And so I said, okay, that sounds good. I'm going to get that. I also really like, they have like in case you need to know a bit about pandas, there's a section in the README.
Which who doesn't need to know a bit about pandas?
Here's some graphics about pandas. They sleep 12 to 14 hours per day. Yeah, so you can read more about pandas while you're using a VS Code theme, which is great.
Love it.
Anyway, so with that said, now we can run our command, which the title was Hello World. And Hello World from Cats Everywhere. We did it. So this used a couple of different APIs. Maybe you picked up on it because everything was namespaced with VS Code dot. And that's because we've imported this VS Code package. Now, it's important to note that this package doesn't actually exist. It's just only available within the VS Code extension runtime. So you're not going to like look in node modules and see a VS Code package in here, though you will see the types in the types folder. But it's this will be available at runtime. But what's cool is that I could take us to the website where we could see the VS Code API, or I could just like go in here.
Nice.
And kind of scroll through all of this stuff. There's a bunch of classes and stuff. And then look at all of these different namespaces and then drill down further and look at all of the functions that this can do. So this is all mirroring what we see on the website, thanks to the power of TypeScript. So right. So let's go ahead and do a couple of things with the API, and then maybe we'll like go through that publishing step one more time. And then, yeah, I mean, it's already 8:45. Time flies.
Time does fly. People get so pumped with this. I feel like we should do like another breakout live stream, just kind of diving into this more, because we have a lot of these cool, like, just do like code with Tyler and just get people's ideas and see how it goes.
Yeah, when I had more time, I did like a live stream on like, I tried to cover like little bits of the API every time. I should really pick that up again if I have the time for it.
There's so much, yeah.
Yeah. So, right, VS Code API website, all of those namespaces that we saw in VS Code. I would say that most people will probably want to touch window, workspace. Those two are the most common, and then commands, I guess, but mostly just the one function, register command.
Okay.
Then there's a bunch of other stuff, but let's take a look at window to see what we can do here. I want to focus on, there's these variables and these events, but I want to focus on the functions here. So you could see, like, we're just kind of scrolling through them here, but we have like create status bar item. So you can kind of guess what that does. Create terminal, create tree view. And then there's a bunch of registering. I figure it would be a good idea to cover one of these things that says register X provider. This is like kind of a common pattern within the API. So I'm going to focus on this one, register file decoration provider. So a file decoration is like this U right here. You could see these guys.
Okay.
That's what's called a file decoration. So let's play around with that. So maybe we'll do vscode.window.register, and all the stuff shows up, as you can see there. Register file decoration provider, and of course Copilot is just like going to do most of this for me. But basically what we want to pass in is a vscode.file decoration provider. And actually, if we just hit F12 on this, we can get taken to the types of this. And then we can look at file decoration provider and take a look at that. And that's just an interface. It's an interface, and all it does is it implements a provide file decoration function. Okay. So all we have to do is pass in to the first parameter of this function an object that has a provide file decoration function. But that has to return a file decoration. So what does that look like? I mean, I think we can kind of guess what that looks like based on what Copilot had just said. But looking at file decoration, we can see it's a class. So let's go ahead and use the constructor to make that. So return new VS Code file decoration. I actually think that's not correct. We want a badge here. We're going to go with the cat emoji. And then we're going to say tooltip. This is the boring part of this. I'm just like kind of filling in the code here, but and then we can optionally specify a color if we want to, but I'm not going to do any of that. So we're just going to go with that. So all we're doing is saying, like, this is not a very complicated file decoration provider, but essentially you can see that I get passed in a URI. The URI is the URI of the particular file in VS Code. So, the file URI for this extension .ts will be something like file : / and then the file path. And then, from there I could be like, oh yeah, I only want to show cats for TypeScript files or something like that. Or I only want to, like, I'll read the file contents, and then if I notice that there's a cat inside of it, then I'll add a little cat decoration or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just let your imagination run wild, right? But for the sake of this, let's go ahead and just run this guy, which I still have that instance running over here. So I could just hit refresh, and that will have my updated extension. And that's because I have the build running in the background, which ran automatically when I hit F5. And then, just refresh will load the code from what's built.
Cool.
Okay. So now we do hello world again. And now we should see, I guess I have to open some files here. Now we see
nice.
as file decorations.
Oh, that's so cool.
For all of the files. So, cool. So we got some cats in places. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's do something like this. I feel like it's important to maybe show off some debugging stuff, because that's super important when you're working on a VS Code extension.
Mhm.
So let's do we'll do this, and then we'll set a breakpoint here. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's run it again. I guess I must have closed it.
Can you have multiple things happen when you type in this hello world? So, for example, we've just seen it log hello world, and we've seen it add the file decoration. Could you have multiple things that get triggered from that hello world command?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Let's why don't we let's add one more thing. Let's add a status bar. All right. We'll go to the API, create status bar item, VS Code.window create status bar item. Alignment. What's in alignment? Oh, I see. Thanks, Copilot. Alignment left, priority 100. Okay, sure. So we've created a status bar item. Probably have to save that one to a variable. And then we do name, which of course is going to be the cat emoji.
Obviously.
Here we'll switch it up and do this cat. And then status dot show. Yeah, okay, cool. And then maybe we say status dot command, and we'll say it runs hello status, and then we need to make sure that we register that disposable, or we register that command hello status. So let's do something like this again. What's it called? Cats everywhere. Live coding, folks. So exciting. This will probably be the last thing we cover, so we have time for questions.
Okay.
I'm glad that we at least covered the publishing with the other one, with the snippet thing. The publishing is identical in both cases.
Okay. And
so
just another plug for the documentation there. The extension documentation is really great.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll show you another one. We actually have a community on GitHub discussions that's for extension authors, which is also linked from the extension documentation. So if you can't figure it out from the documentation, feel free to post a question there and we can help you out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm just showing some other stuff.
Oh yeah, this is fun. Just see what else you can do.
Yeah, okay. This seems good. Let's run this. Now I'm noticing that I think there might be something wrong with my debugger. Let's see if we can figure this out. All right, we run this. Okay, cool. Now this should be good now. All right, so what did I say? Hello world. Cool. So I put a breakpoint here by just adding it to the gutter here. And then now when I run the code using F5, my breakpoint gets hit because our file decoration provider was hit, which is great. And so then I could be kind of I set this as a const. I don't think this is gonna work. I was gonna see if I could change this to a dog, scandalous, to see if that works. Let's see. Yeah, it should work. Okay, cool. So I just went over here in the variables of the debugger and I changed the cat to a dog.
Cool.
Just for the run.
For the
and then
giggles.
if I hit play, yeah. So one of them. So this is providing for every single URI. So this function's getting run a bunch of times, but just for that one case, there was a dog. So I hit continue until it's done, and then we see that there's a dog there.
Oh.
Yeah, and then the 3 cats. Now I'm not seeing my status bar item. Oh no, there it is. It's
there it is.
because I have so many things. Let me just sorry, I have to zoom out in order to actually see it, I think. Maybe? Oh, maybe there's a different property. Maybe it is there. It says cat. I see the cat. Where are you, cat?
I see it. It's there.
Show yourself. Oh, text. Text to be shown for the entry. Maybe that's this. Let's try this.
Sure.
All right, restart. This is all part of it, right?
Yeah. Figure out not seeing it, figure out what you need to change, all that good stuff.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to get rid of this breakpoint since we don't need it anymore. There it is. There's the cat.
Yay! Cat in your status bar. That's awesome.
Right. And so then this should work where since I've registered this hello status command here, and I said that for this status bar item, we want the command to be hello status when it's clicked. So in theory, I click this and then we get the message, hello world from cats everywhere. Yeah.
Cool.
So
all just from, it's like a chain of commands basically. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of, I mean, obviously you start here and then you expand.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like these are building blocks, right? Just start slow, get the hang of the APIs, figure out what you want to do, and then just build from there. Starting from Yo Code is great. Also, I want to call out this repo, which is the VS Code extension samples repo. There are a bunch of samples in here on very specific APIs of the VS Code API. So I highly recommend taking a look at this because if you're like, how the heck do I use notebook renderers? This would be the best place to kind of like get an idea for how they're actually used in a sample. Whereas like, Yo Code, it just shows you the hello world basically. So cool. Definitely worthwhile. Awesome. Yeah. There's lots of love in the chat. Jason said, would love another stream continuing this topic. So Tyler, if you'll have us again, we would love to maybe do a deeper dive, maybe like take suggestions from users before about what they want to see. Yeah. Or just do this again, right? But, past, creating your very first one, but maybe working on existing one you have or something like that. Because I know you're very active with the localization API. There's so many things you can do with it. Definitely. Yeah. This just kind of starts out with like, how do you get from zero to like something worthwhile publishing on the marketplace? But then there's like definitely a big step from like, okay, now I've got a good extension on the marketplace. How do I make that to be like actually like, more professional, I guess, when we talk about localization and there's a bunch of UX guidelines to go through, basically like where we see you using the things that are in the API and like how to use them effectively so that, users don't get annoyed and there's like consistency across extensions so that VS Code and its platform look nice. So cool. Makes sense. We're pretty much right at the end, but there's one question if you want to take it, just the last one. What's the best or preferred way to test an extension in a headless environment like GitHub Actions? I don't know if you have experience with that. Yeah. That's the thing. I never got the chance to really talk about it, but you might have realized that the Yo Code had this whole test suite. And so if we dig into this extension.test.ts, basically this is what this will do when you run it is it will run within a VS Code
like headless environment. It actually like downloads like insiders or stable, one of the two, and like runs these tests within that environment. So you have access to the VS Code API. Now, granted, showing a message, that's a little tricky to do, because, you know, obviously you're not going to be able to like say, oh yeah, did the information message show up? But like you're using the API, so you can assume that like, yes, it probably did show up. So definitely playing around with this. I believe there are some commands that I don't know if this covers it at all. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Test runner. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of good stuff here, but I'll have to see. I know that there are some commands for like doing things that would otherwise be human interaction. So like hitting enter in the command palette or something like that. There's like a command for like causing that to happen when you need actual user interaction. But you know, that's more talking about like more like complete end-to-end tests than something like a unit test. So I would say like play around with that a little bit. I should have like looked this up. Maybe that's a topic for like a more in-depth
Absolutely, yeah.
than where we're at with this thing. But yeah.
Yeah, the people have spoken. They want you to come on and do another deep dive. So I know there's been a lot of questions in the chat, so sorry if I didn't post. I was just trying to keep it within the scope of this one, but we'll have Tyler back so you all can get your questions there, and we can dive even deeper into this past the initial creation of these extensions.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. We do want to end on our lightning round segment.
Sure.
I'll ask you a couple of quick questions. Okay. GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Same. JSON or JSON?
I say JSON.
I do too. Yeah. It's actually like to the point where like I don't like saying JSON just sounds like I don't even know what that is.
Who's Jason anyway?
I know. Okay, tabs or spaces?
For a long time, I used to be team spaces, but I've switched to team tabs because of accessibility. I heard that like because tabs can be like a variable width, right, based on like your editor, somebody who needs more or less indentation is able to control that with tabs more easily than with spaces. So
that is a great plug. Good to know.
Yeah,
always keep that forefront.
Yeah, so cool. That's where I'm at.
All right, so last question in the spirit of today's topic: what is one VS Code extension that you cannot live without?
Oh gosh, I use a lot of them, but let's see. I mean, I'm not going to say Copilot because I feel like that's an obvious choice, but and also, you know, it costs money unless you're a student. But I really like, there's this extension that somebody on the VS Code team made, Megan. I use it all the time, which is in TypeScript. If I like make a string like this, but then I realize I actually want it to be a template string, right? You probably know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
So I hit $, and then I hit left brace, and then it like automatically turns those single quotes to backticks. And then that way I can use my templating here.
Mm-hmm.
VS Code.env.language.
Yeah, the template string converter is clutch.
It's like, it's such a small extension, but like, I can't tell you how many times I use it because I just default to single quotes for strings first.
Right.
So cool. It just saves me like that many keystrokes.
Yeah, definitely check it out, y'all, if you are working with template strings a lot.
What's the name of it? I think it's called template string.
Yeah, I think it's template
Converter.
string converter, maybe. Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah, here it is. Template string. Gosh, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. There you go. Template string converter. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. All right. Thanks so much, Tyler. We will definitely have you on in the future. So everyone in the chat, stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you showing everyone what you had.
Yeah, no problem. I guess like if people have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Twitter. Wow, you were ready with that
right
one.
Up there. Nice. Summon that.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, let me know. I mean, keep in mind, I'm not like on call to responding to your questions. I'll respond as soon as I can. But yeah,
Tyler's still a person.
But I will tell you to look at the docs first if you come with a question that I know is covered by the docs. So do that so we don't have that awkward initial conversation, me telling you to read the docs.
Always a good plug. Cool. All right. So y'all reach out to Tyler if you have any questions, and stay tuned for when we have him back on for a deeper dive. All right. So everyone watching, thank you all so much for joining. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and you will be able to see this on replay. And just another plug, tomorrow we are having the first show of Python Pulse. So if you're a Python programmer, definitely check that out tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. It will be on the Visual Studio Twitch and the VS Code YouTube channel live stream. So check that out. Thank you all so much for coming, and we will see you next week.